Queen Erin stood before the massive viewing window of her throne room, watching another star system die. The crystalline spires of her palace trembled as the news arrived. Colony 12 had fallen. 3 billion souls consumed by the void swarm in less than a week. Her hands gripped the railing so hard that small cracks appeared in the crystal surface. "Your Majesty, we must evacuate the outer rim," her military commander said behind her. His voice carried defeat that she had never heard before. "Our fleets cannot hold them back. The swarm adapts to every weapon we use." Erin closed her eyes. She was queen of the Valtheris Empire, ruler of 3 star systems, guardian of 12 billion crystalline beings whose ancestors had walked among the stars for 10,000 years. And now she was watching everything burn. The void swarm was unlike any enemy they had ever faced. It did not negotiate. It did not retreat. It simply consumed everything, turning vibrant worlds into empty husks of rock and dust. "What about the other galactic powers?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "The Telvari Republic refused our plea. They say helping us would make them targets. The Sorveth Collective is evacuating their own border worlds. The Kryn Alliance offered thoughts and prayers, but no ships." He paused. "There is one option we have not explored." Erin turned to face him. "Speak." "Humanity." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Humanity. The young species that had barely left their home system 2 centuries ago. The strange primates from Earth who built their ships from metal instead of growing them from living crystal. The warriors who fought with explosive chemicals and kinetic weapons that seemed primitive compared to energy-based warfare. But Erin had heard the stories. Every spacefaring civilization had. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not calculate odds and retreat when logic demanded. They adapted, improvised, and somehow won battles they should have lost. When the Krell Empire invaded human space with a fleet 10 times larger, humans had turned their own asteroid belts into weapons. When the Vex plague ships tried to biobomb Earth, humans had flown infected ships directly into the sun to contain the outbreak. They were unpredictable, stubborn, and absolutely terrifying when cornered. "Send our fastest ship to Earth," Erin commanded. "Request an audience with their military command." 3 days later, her advisor, Counselor Beck, stood in the Unified Defense Command headquarters on Earth. The building was strange to his eyes, made of concrete and steel, brutally functional. He was led into a conference room where a human sat studying holographic star maps. The human wore a dark blue uniform with silver insignia on his shoulders. "Commander Taiwan," the human said, standing to greet him. He was tall for his species, with dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to analyze everything. "I've read your brief about the Void Swarm. I'm sorry for your losses." Beck felt a wave of relief. At least this human understood the gravity of the situation. "We need your help. Our entire civilization faces extinction." Taiwan gestured to a chair and they both sat. "I've studied what little data we have on the swarm. It's a formidable enemy. But, Counselor, Earth cannot commit military forces without approval from the Human Council. And I must be honest with you. The Council will ask what strategic value Valtheris offers to humanity." The words were like cold water. "Strategic value? We are talking about billions of lives." "I know," Taiwan said quietly. "But Earth has limited resources. We have our own territories to defend. The Council represents hundreds of colony worlds, and they will not risk human lives without clear cause. That's politics, and I hate it as much as you do, but it's reality." Beck returned to Valtheris with the devastating news. Queen Erin listened to his report in silence, her face carved from crystal showing no emotion. But inside her heart was breaking. There was no help coming. Her people would die alone. That night, Erin made a decision that would change everything. She summoned her daughter, Princess Hana, to her private chambers. Hana entered wearing the traditional armor of Valtheris royalty, crystalline plates that glowed with soft blue light. She was beautiful, intelligent, and trained in both warfare and statecraft. She was everything Arin could have hoped for in an heir, and now Arin had to sacrifice her daughter's freedom for the survival of their people. "Mother, you summoned me?" "Sit down, Hana. What I am about to tell you will not be easy to hear." Arin explained everything. The failed diplomatic missions, the dying colonies, the humans who could help but would not. And then she explained her plan. "I am going to Earth myself, and I am going to offer them something they cannot refuse. I will offer you in marriage to their commander, Taiwan. A union between our species, an eternal alliance." Hana's eyes went wide. You want to sell me like property? I want to save our people, Aaron said firmly. With this marriage, we create permanent bonds between humanity and Valtheris. Their council cannot ignore such an alliance, and you would become a bridge between two civilizations. And what if I refuse? Then 12 billion Valtheris will die, and you will live with that knowledge. Aaron's voice softened. I am not blind to what I am asking of you, but we are royalty, Hana. Our lives have never been our own. We serve our people no matter the cost. Hana stood silent for a long moment, emotions warring across her face. Finally, she nodded. I will do it. For our people. Queen Aaron traveled to Earth the next day, breaking protocols that said monarchs never left their homeworlds. She arrived at the Unified Defense Command and requested a private meeting with Commander Taewan. The human seemed surprised to see her but granted the audience. They met in a simple office with none of the grandeur of her throne room. Aaron stood before this human warrior and made her offer. Commander Taewan, I offer you my daughter's hand in marriage. She is the crown princess of the Valtheris Empire. Through this union you would gain title, political power, and access to our technologies. In return, I ask that you save my kingdom from destruction. Taewan stared at her for a long moment. Your Majesty, with respect, I cannot accept. Marriage should not be a transaction, and I will not bind someone to me who has no choice in the matter. Aaron had expected this. She pulled out a holographic projector and activated it. Images filled the room. Valtheris children being evacuated from dying worlds, their eyes wide with fear. Cities crumbling as the swarm tore through them. Families holding each other as their ships fled into the darkness of space. These are my people, Commander. These are the ones who will die if you refuse. I am not asking you to love my daughter. I am asking you to be the hero your species is famous for being. Humans do not abandon those in need. That is what makes you different from every other species in the galaxy. Taewan watched the images play out. His jaw tightened. Aaron could see the war happening inside him, between his principles and his conscience. Finally, he spoke. I will help you, but I need full operational control of the mission. Your military commanders will follow my orders without question, and I will not force your daughter into anything she does not want. If we succeed, she and I will decide together what happens next. Aaron felt tears forming in her crystalline eyes. Thank you, Commander. Don't thank me yet, Taewan said grimly. We still have to win an impossible war. Princess Hana stepped off the transport ship onto Earth's landing platform and immediately felt uncomfortable. Everything here was wrong. The air smelled of industrial chemicals instead of the clean crystalline atmosphere of Valtheris. The buildings were made of dead materials, metal and concrete that felt lifeless to her touch. And somewhere in this strange place was the human warrior who her mother had promised her to. She had imagined Commander Taewan as a brutish warlord, scarred and violent like the warriors in old Valtheris tales of barbaric species. Instead, she was led to a strategy room where a quiet man stood studying holographic displays of star systems. He wore a simple military uniform and his face showed concentration rather than aggression. Princess Hana, he said, turning to face her. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. Welcome to Earth, I'm Commander Taewan. I know who you are, Hana said, keeping her voice cold. You are the human who accepted my mother's bargain. Your mother made a desperate choice to save her people. I made a choice to help because it was right, not because of what was offered. He gestured to the holographic displays. These are the current Void Swarm positions. I need your tactical knowledge of their behavior patterns. Hana blinked in surprise. You want my tactical knowledge? I am just a political prize to you, am I not? You are a trained warrior and a princess who has studied the swarm for months. I would be a fool to ignore your expertise. Taewan pulled up a display showing swarm movement patterns. Your mother mentioned you commanded defensive operations at Colony 7. You held them off for 3 days longer than any other colony. How? Despite herself, Hana felt drawn into the discussion. She moved closer to the display and began explaining. The swarm moves in waves. They probe defenses, learn, adapt, then overwhelm. But if you shift your defensive positions constantly, they cannot adapt quickly enough. We rotated our fleet formations every 2 hours. Taewan nodded, his eyes sharp, keeping them off balance and smart, but ultimately they still won. Because we ran out of ships to rotate, Hana admitted. The swarm has infinite numbers. We do not. Then we don't fight them with numbers. We fight them with unpredictability. Taewan pulled up Earth's military history files. Images of ancient human wars filled the screens. Humans have always been outnumbered by our enemies. We learned to win through adaptation and strategy. Over the next several days, Hana found herself working alongside Taiwan in the strategy room. She learned about human warfare, which shocked her with its brutal efficiency. Valtherus combat was elegant, built around their natural crystalline armor and energy manipulation abilities. Human combat was raw and practical, focused on exploiting every possible weakness. "This is crude," she said, watching a simulation of human soldiers using explosive charges to collapse a building on enemy forces. "It's effective," Taiwan replied. "We don't have crystalline armor or energy manipulation. We have to use what we have. Every species fights to their strengths." One evening, Taiwan found her training in the combat simulator. She moved through holographic enemies with grace, her crystalline armor glowing as she channeled energy blasts through her hands. It was beautiful to watch, like a deadly dance. When she finished, she noticed him watching. "Have you come to criticize my technique?" "No, I came to learn from it." He stepped into the simulator. "Show me how you channel energy." Hana was surprised by his willingness to learn. She demonstrated the basic techniques, explaining how Valtherus drew power from their crystalline bodies. Taiwan could not replicate it, of course, being human, but he studied the movements, the tactical applications. "If we could integrate this with kinetic weapons," he mused. "Your energy barriers could protect soldiers while they close distance with explosives." "You want to combine our methods?" Hana asked. "Why not? We're going to fight together. We should fight as one force, not two separate armies." It was the first time anyone had suggested truly combining their strengths, rather than just having humans fight for Valtherus. Hana felt something shift in her perception of this quiet human commander. Over the following weeks, Taiwan assembled his strike team. Hana met Captain Jiwoo, a weapons specialist with a quick smile and quicker reflexes. Lieutenant Yuna was a combat engineer who could build or destroy anything given enough time. Sergeant Daeho was a reconnaissance expert who moved like a shadow. "These are my most trusted officers," Taiwan explained. "They have fought beside me for 5 years. They will be the core of our combined unit." "And what am I to be?" Hana asked. "A figurehead? You are to be whatever you prove yourself to be," Taiwan said simply. "Rank must be earned." Hana bristled at this, but then realized it was fair. She asked to train with the human soldiers. Jiwoo took her to the combat training grounds where human and Valtherus forces were practicing together. The cultural clash was immediate. Valtherus soldiers found human tactics dishonorable. Human soldiers found Valtherus techniques impractical. Hana watched them struggle to work together and made a decision. She stepped into the training circle and challenged Jiwoo to a sparring match. The combat was intense. Jiwoo used rapid movements and deceptive strikes. Hana used her crystalline armor and energy manipulation. They fought to a standstill, neither able to gain advantage. Finally, Hana extended her hand. "We fight differently, but we both fight well. Perhaps we can learn from each other." Jiwoo grinned and shook her hand. "Now you're starting to think like a human." The training intensified as the departure date approached. Hana participated in every simulation, pushing herself harder than she ever had. During one simulation, her unit was pinned down by overwhelming swarm forces. The scenario seemed impossible. "There is no way to win this," she said, frustrated. "There is always a way," Taiwan said, entering the simulation. He showed her an unconventional solution involving sacrificing their position to lure the swarm into a trap. It was risky, and would normally be considered dishonorable by Valtherus standards. "You would sacrifice your position to win the battle and save lives?" "Yes. Pride does not matter when people are dying." Hana began to understand human warfare was not about honor or glory. It was about survival and victory at any cost. There was a harsh beauty to it. One night before departure, Hana could not sleep. She wandered the halls of the military complex and found Taiwan standing on an observation deck, looking at Earth's ocean. The moon reflected off the water in silver patterns. "Cannot sleep?" he asked without turning. "I keep thinking about what comes after," Hana admitted, moving to stand beside him. "If we win, what happens to us?" "Your mother made promises, but I will not hold you to them," Taiwan said. "When this is over, you are free to choose your own path." "What if I choose to stay?" The words surprised even Hana. Taiwan looked at her with those sharp eyes. "Why would you?" "Because I have learned something these past weeks. You humans are strange and your methods are crude, but you care about doing what is right. You accepted an impossible mission not for reward, but because people needed help. That is rare in the galaxy. We are not saints, Princess. Humans are capable of great cruelty too. So are Valtheris. Every species has darkness, she gestured at the ocean. But you also have this. Beauty that you protect. People you love. Is that not worth fighting for? It is the only thing worth fighting for, Taewon said quietly. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the waves. Something had changed between them over these weeks of planning and training. What started as a political arrangement had become a partnership. Maybe it could become something more. The next morning, the fleet prepared to depart. 50 human warships and 30 Valtheris vessels that had managed to escape to Earth. It was not enough to face the Void Swarm in direct combat, but Taewon had never planned to fight fair. As Hana boarded the command ship, she took one last look at Earth, this strange world with its metal cities and salt oceans. She had arrived here expecting to hate it. Instead, she had found something unexpected. She had found respect for these odd primates who refused to give up, and she had found a human commander who treated her as an equal rather than a prize. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. Ahead lay Valtheris Prime and the greatest battle of their lives. Hana stood on the bridge beside Taewon, watching the stars streak past. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. "I am ready to save my people," Hana replied. "And I am ready to show you that Valtheris can fight just as fiercely as humans." Taewon smiled. "I never doubted that, Princess." The fleet emerged from hyperspace to a scene of devastation. Valtheris Prime hung in space surrounded by debris from destroyed ships. The Void Swarm covered the outer defensive perimeter like a living black cloud, pulsing and writhing as it consumed everything in its path. Massive tendril structures reached toward the planet, each one kilometers long and covered in what looked like organic armor. "Communications from Valtheris Command," the officer announced. "They are requesting immediate reinforcements at the defensive line." Taewon studied the tactical display with intense focus. The Valtheris fleet was scattered, trying to hold multiple positions at once. They were losing slowly but surely. "Negative. Tell them to pull back to orbital position Alpha." "Commander, they say pulling back will expose civilian evacuation routes," the officer protested. "I know what I am doing. Send the order." Hana watched from her position on the bridge. She wanted to argue, but she had promised to trust his tactical decisions. Still, every instinct told her that retreating now would doom the evacuation ships. The Valtheris commanders were equally unhappy. Admiral Minho, the highest-ranking military officer, appeared on the communications screen. His crystalline face showed barely controlled anger. "Commander Taewon, I do not care what authority Queen Arin gave you. I will not abandon civilians to that horror. Admiral, the Swarm wants you to defend those positions. They are hurting your fleet exactly where they want you. Pull back now and trust me." "Trust a human who has never fought the Swarm before? I think not." Taewon's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "Then watch your fleet die in the next 30 minutes. "Your choice." The channel went silent. Then grudgingly, Admiral Minho ordered the retreat. The Valtheris ships pulled back, leaving gaps in the defensive perimeter. Immediately, the Swarm surged forward through the gaps exactly as Taewon predicted. "Now," Taewon commanded. "Launch all kinetic missiles. Target coordinates I am transmitting." The human fleet unleashed a devastating barrage. Thousands of missiles accelerated to incredible speeds, streaking through space, but they were not aimed at the Swarm tendrils. Instead, they targeted specific points in the debris field from earlier battles. The missiles struck destroyed ships and shattered stations, creating a cascading effect. Debris exploded outward in calculated patterns, slamming into the Swarm formations at high velocity. The Swarm had no time to adapt. Entire sections of their formation were torn apart by the metal fragments. Admiral Minho stared at the tactical display in shock. "How did you know?" "The Swarm is intelligent, but it thinks in patterns. It saw your defensive positions and calculated the optimal attack vectors. It never considered that the battlefield itself could be weaponized." Taewon highlighted several Swarm formations that were now isolated. "Now we hit them while they are separated. All ships, attack formation Delta." The combined fleet surged forward. Human ships used kinetic weapons to tear through Swarm biomass while Valtheris ships followed behind, using their energy weapons to burn through weakened sections. The coordination was imperfect but effective. On the bridge, Hana monitored the civilian evacuation routes. The swarm had indeed moved away from them exactly as Taiwan predicted. But now a new problem emerged. A smaller swarm tendril had broken off and was moving toward the evacuation ships. "Commander, we have a problem," she said, highlighting the threat on the display. Taiwan saw it immediately. "How many evacuation ships?" 30 vessels carrying approximately 50,000 civilians. He looked at the fleet positions. They were all committed to the main assault. There were no ships available to intercept the tendril. "We need to pull back forces." "That will give the main swarm time to regroup," Admiral Minho protested. Hana made a decision. "I will handle it." "Princess, that is suicide," Taiwan said sharply. "Those are my people. I will not abandon them." She was already moving toward the hangar bay. "Captain Jiwoo, Lieutenant Yuna, Sergeant Daeho with me. We need a strike team." Taiwan wanted to order her to stand down, but he saw the determination in her eyes. This was her moment to prove herself. "Go, but you come back alive. That is an order." Hana smiled, despite the fear churning in her stomach. "I will try my best, Commander." She led her team to the hangar where small attack craft waited. Jiwoo took one look at the swarm tendril size and whistled. "That thing is massive. What is the plan?" "We use human tactics. We get close, plant Yuna's explosive charges at structural weak points, and then run very fast." "I like this plan," Daeho said, checking his weapons. "Simple and likely to get us killed." They launched in 4 attack craft streaking toward the swarm tendril. The thing was aware of them immediately, sprouting weapon growths that fired bioplasma. Hana's crystalline armor absorbed some impacts, but her craft still took damage. "Evasive maneuvers," she commanded, throwing her craft into a spiral. "Yuna, identify weak points." Yuna scanned the tendril's structure as they dodged weapons fire. "There are 3 nodes along its length that seem to be structural supports. Destroy those and the whole thing might collapse." "Might?" Jiwoo asked. "This is not exact science. The swarm is biological. It might regenerate or adapt." "Then we make sure it does not have time to regenerate." Hana flew her craft directly at the first node, unleashing energy blasts from her personal weapons. The swarm biomass burned but regenerated almost immediately. "It is too resilient." "We need more firepower." Jiwoo grinned. "I have an idea." "Princess, you remember that combined technique we practiced? Valtheris energy barriers with human explosives?" Hana understood immediately. "Fly close. I will create a barrier to protect us from the blast radius." They dove toward the first node as a team. Hana channeled energy into a protective barrier around both craft while Jiwoo armed her most powerful explosive charge. At the last second, Jiwoo launched the charge and Hana pulled them away at maximum speed. The explosion was contained by Hana's barrier, directing all force into the swarm node. The biomass could not regenerate fast enough. The node shattered and that section of tendril began to die. "2 more to go," Daeho called out. "But we have incoming. Swarm fighters launching from the main tendril." Dozens of small swarm organisms flew toward them, each one a living weapon. Hana engaged them with her energy blasts while Daeho used kinetic weapons to tear through their organic armor. It was a desperate running battle. They reached the second node, but Yuna's craft took heavy damage. "I am venting atmosphere. I can make it to the node, but I cannot escape afterward." "Negative," Hana said immediately. "We extract together or not at all. Princess, those civilians will die if we fail." Hana thought of Taiwan's words about human warfare. Pride does not matter when people are dying. "Yuna, arm your explosives on remote detonation." "Jiwoo, can you tow her craft?" "It will slow us down, but yes." "Then we do this as a team." They attached a tow cable to Yuna's damaged craft and approached the second node together. This time Jiwoo planted the explosive while Hana maintained barriers against incoming fire. Daeho covered their retreat, his weapons cutting down swarm fighters with precise shots. The second node exploded. The tendril was now severing from the main swarm body, but it still reached toward the evacuation ships. They needed to destroy the third node before it could attach. "All power to engines," Hana commanded. "We are racing it." The 4 craft shot forward at maximum speed, towing Yuna's damaged vessel. The swarm tendril writhed and accelerated, both forces racing toward the same point in space. Behind them, more swarm fighters pursued. "We are not going to make it," Jiwoo said, checking the calculations. "Yes, we will." Hana channeled energy into her craft's engines, pushing them beyond safe limits. Her crystalline body glowed with power as she forced more speed from the vessel. 30 seconds. Daeho's craft took a hit and started tumbling. I am hit. Go without me. No. Hana extended her energy barrier to cover all 4 craft. The strain was enormous, like trying to hold up a mountain. Her crystalline body began to crack from the effort. 20 seconds. The evacuation ships were directly ahead. So was the swarm tendrils' reaching point, and behind them the pursuing fighters closed in. 10 seconds. Yuna, prepare to detonate on my mark. They reached the 3rd node with the swarm's weapons tearing at Hana's barrier. She could not hold much longer. Now! Yuna detonated all remaining explosives simultaneously. The blast was enormous, destroying the 3rd node and sending a shockwave through space. Hana's barrier collapsed and the 4 craft tumbled through space, damaged but alive. The swarm tendril, cut off from its main body and with all structural nodes destroyed, began to die. It drifted harmlessly past the evacuation ships, which continued their flight to safety. Princess, are you alive? Taewon's voice came through the damaged communications. Hana checked her team. All alive, though badly injured. We are here. The civilians are safe. Then get back to the fleet. We have a battle to win. They limped back to the fleet in their damaged craft. The main battle was turning in favor of the combined forces. Taewon's unconventional tactics had broken the swarm's coordination. Within hours, the swarm began to retreat, pulling back from Valtheris Prime. Hana landed her craft in the hangar and stumbled out, exhausted. Taewon was waiting there. Without thinking, she walked into his arms. He held her tightly. You are insane, he said quietly. I learned from the victory celebrations on Valtheris Prime lasted 3 days. The crystalline cities glowed with joy as people flooded the streets. They had survived the impossible. The Void Swarm had been driven back and their saviors were being honored as heroes. Taewon stood in the royal palace wearing ceremonial armor that felt too tight and too formal. Queen Erin had insisted on a grand ceremony to announce the formal engagement between him and Princess Hana. Thousands of Valtheris nobility filled the great hall, their crystalline bodies reflecting light in dazzling patterns. You look uncomfortable, Hana whispered beside him. She wore traditional royal garments that made her look even more beautiful, but her eyes showed concern. I am a soldier, not a prince, Taewon replied quietly. This is not my world. It will be if you marry me. She squeezed his hand. But you do not have to go through with this. I would not blame you for refusing. Before Taewon could respond, Queen Arian stepped forward to address the crowd. She spoke of the great alliance between humanity and Valtheris, of the courage shown by both species, and of the union that would cement their bond forever. The crowd cheered as she formally announced the engagement. Taewon felt trapped. He cared for Hana deeply after fighting beside her, but this grand political theater was suffocating. When the ceremony finally ended, he escaped to the palace gardens where crystalline trees grew in patterns that looked like frozen lightning. Hana found him there an hour later. I thought you might need some air. How do you handle it? Taewon asked. The constant attention, the expectations, the politics. I was born into it. I never knew anything else. She sat beside him on a bench carved from a single piece of crystal. But I understand your discomfort. You fight battles because they need fighting, not for glory or recognition. I accepted your mother's bargain to save lives, not to become royalty. Then leave. Hana's voice was calm but sad. I give you permission to walk away. Tell my mother the political situation changed. She will understand. Taewon looked at her in surprise. You would let me go? I would rather you leave freely than stay and be miserable. I care too much about you to trap you. She smiled despite the pain in her eyes. Besides, humans taught me that freedom matters more than duty sometimes. Taewon took her hand. What if I am not miserable? What if the only part of this I truly hate is the ceremony and politics? Then we find a way to avoid most of it. Hana leaned against him. We are heroes now. We can make some of our own rules. Over the next weeks, reconstruction efforts consumed everyone's attention. Taewon and Hana coordinated relief operations, using combined human and Valtheris resources to rebuild damaged cities. They worked side by side, often forgetting about their engagement in the practical demands of helping millions of displaced people. During this time, Taewon noticed growing political tensions. Some Valtheris nobility seemed unhappy with the human presence. Lord Kyung-soo was particularly vocal, speaking in council meetings about preserving Valtheris traditions and culture. He fears change, Admiral Minho explained when Taewon asked. Our people have remained culturally isolated for thousands of years. Suddenly we have humans walking our streets, sharing our technology, influencing our military. To traditional nobles like Kyung-soo, this is invasion by another name. We came because we were asked, Taewon said, frustrated. I know, but not everyone sees it that way. The tensions came to a head during a council meeting where reconstruction priorities were being discussed. Lord Kyung-soo stood and addressed the assembly. We must ask ourselves an important question. We invited humans to help us fight the swarm. That threat has been defeated. Why are they still here? They are here because we asked them to help rebuild, Queen Aaron said firmly. Or perhaps they are here because they see opportunity. Weak Valtheris worlds ripe for colonization, technology they can study and steal. Political influence over our government through this arranged marriage. Kyung-soo gestured toward Taiwan. The commander is a military genius, I grant you. But we must consider whether we are trading one invader for another. Hana stood up, her eyes blazing. You dare suggest that humans who bled and died defending our worlds are invaders? I suggest we must be cautious. History shows that species offering help often have hidden motives. Then let me make our motives clear, Taewon said, standing as well. Humanity gained access to some of your technology, yes. We learned from working alongside your people, as you learned from us. That is called cooperation. As for colonization, Earth has no interest in ruling Valtheris worlds. We have enough trouble governing our own colonies. And regarding political influence, Queen Aaron offered an alliance that I accepted. If Valtheris no longer wants that alliance, we can discuss ending it. You would leave? Kyung-soo asked. If your people truly do not want us here, then yes. We will not stay where we are not welcome. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some nobles agreed with Kyung-soo. Others defended the human presence. Queen Aaron called for order, but the damage was done. Seeds of doubt had been planted. That night, Taewon discussed the situation with his officers. Captain Jiwoo, Lieutenant Yuna, and Sergeant Daeho gathered in the human quarters. Lord Kyung-soo is building a political faction, Yuna reported. Our intelligence shows he is meeting secretly with other nobles. They call themselves the Preservation Council. Are they a threat? Taewon asked. Not militarily, but politically they could force Queen Aaron to end the alliance. Daeho frowned. There is something else. I have been monitoring communications. Some of Kyung-soo's people have been in contact with outside parties. Encrypted channels we cannot break. Outside parties? You mean other alien species? Yes. I believe they are communicating with the Torvan hegemony. Taewon felt cold. The Torvan hegemony was a militaristic empire that had been eyeing Valtheris territory for decades. They had stayed back because Valtheris was strong. But now, weakened by war with the swarm, Valtheris would look vulnerable. Are you suggesting Kyung-soo is committing treason? I'm suggesting we need more evidence before making accusations. Before they could investigate further, alarms blared throughout the palace. Taewon and his team ran toward the sound, weapons ready. They found chaos. Guards were fighting in the corridors. Someone had launched an attack inside the palace itself. Taewon pushed through to Queen Aaron's chambers and found her on the ground, injured but alive. Hana was beside her, fighting off two attackers. Taewon raised his weapon, but Jiwoo was faster, dropping both attackers with precise shots. Mother! Hana cradled Queen Aaron, her hands trying to stop the bleeding from a deep wound in the queen's side. I am fine, Aaron said weakly. Where is Commander Taewon? Here, Your Majesty. Taewon knelt beside her. They tried to kill both of us. The alliance itself is the target. Medical teams arrived and began treating the queen. Taewon stood, looking at the dead attackers. Something felt wrong. This was too obvious, too clumsy. Professional assassins would not have failed so easily. Then the second attack happened. An explosion rocked the human quarters. Taewon's heart stopped. His people were there. He ran through the palace faster than he thought possible. Smoke filled the corridors leading to the human section. When he arrived, he found devastation. The explosion had collapsed part of the building. Rescue teams were already pulling people from the rubble. Jiwoo, he called out desperately. Here, Commander. But her voice was weak. He found her pinned under debris, blood pooling beneath her. Yuna and Daeho were working frantically to free her. Stay with me, Captain, Taewon said, taking her hand. Jiwoo smiled weakly. Did we win? We always win. You taught me that. Good. Keep teaching these crystal people how to fight dirty. She coughed, blood on her lips. Take care of the princess. She is good for you. You are going to tell her that yourself once you are healed. But they both knew that was not true. The medics arrived, but it was too late. Captain Jiwoo died holding Taewon's hand, her last smile fading as life left her eyes. Taewon stood slowly, rage and grief warring inside him. Someone had done this. Someone had killed his friend, tried to kill the queen, and was trying to destroy the alliance between their peoples. Find who did this, he said quietly to Daeho. Find them and bring them to me. Investigation teams worked through the night. By morning they had answers. The attackers were linked to Lord Kyung-soo's faction, though not directly to Kyung-soo himself. But the communications Daeho had discovered told a darker story. Lord Kyung-soo had been coordinating with Torvin agents. Queen Arin, recovered enough to stand, called an emergency council. Lord Kyung-soo was arrested and brought before the assembly. Evidence was presented showing his communications with the Torvin hegemony. This is fabricated, Kyung-soo protested. A human trick to discredit me. Hana stepped forward, her voice cold as ice. These communications came from your personal encrypted channel. You have been selling information to the Torvins, promising them access to our worlds if they help you drive out the humans. I was protecting our culture. You were protecting your power, Hana said. And because of you, good people died. Human and Valtherus both. The evidence was overwhelming. The holographic display showed a nightmare. The Void Swarm was returning with 3 times the forces they had faced before. Worse, long-range sensors detected the Torvin hegemony fleet approaching from another direction. Valtherus Prime was about to be caught between 2 enemies. We cannot fight both, Admiral Minho said, his voice hollow. Even with human help, we do not have the numbers. Taewon studied the tactical display in silence. Hana stood beside him, both of them exhausted from days without sleep. The death of Jiwoo still weighed heavily on his heart, but there was no time to grieve properly. They had a war to win. Queen Arin, Taewon said finally, I need complete authority over all military forces. No debates, no council votes. If we are going to survive this, everyone follows my orders without question. You have it, Queen Arin said immediately. Admiral Minho, inform all fleet commanders. Commander Taewon has supreme military authority until this crisis ends. Some nobles protested but were silenced by a look from the Queen. Taewon turned to his team and began issuing orders. Lieutenant Yuna, I need you working with Valtherus scientists. Remember that combined energy barrier and explosive technique Princess Hana used? I want that scaled up to ship level.
Can you do it?
It would require modifying the Valtherus energy emitters to interface with our weapon systems. Very risky. If the calculations are wrong, ships could explode. We are dead anyway if we do not try. Make it work. Yuna saluted and left immediately. Taewon turned to Daeho. I need reconnaissance. I want to know exactly where the swarm's command nodes are located. The big ones that coordinate entire sectors. That means flying scout ships deep into their formation. I know. Volunteers only. Daeho nodded and left to organize the mission. Taewon looked at the remaining officers. We are going to do something the swarm will not expect. We are going offensive. Commander, we are outnumbered 3-1, Admiral Minho protested. Offensive action is suicide. Defensive action is slow death. The swarm wants us cowering behind our planets while they surround us. Instead, we hit them first and hit them hard. Taewon manipulated the display. The swarm has command nodes that coordinate their forces. Destroy those and the entire formation loses cohesion. They become mindless instead of strategic. And the Torvin fleet? That is where politics comes in. Taewon looked at Queen Arin. Your Majesty, I need you to contact the Torvin hegemony directly. Open diplomatic channels. They are coming to invade us. What possible diplomacy exists? Tell them the truth. Tell them the Void Swarm will not stop with Valtherus. Show them battle data. If we fall, the swarm will move to Torvin space next. They can either help us fight or face the swarm alone later. Queen Arin looked doubtful but nodded. I will make the attempt. Over the next 3 days, preparation consumed everyone. Yuna worked without sleep, developing the hybrid weapon systems. Valtherus scientists were skeptical at first, but when the first test succeeded, their skepticism turned to excitement. They were creating something new, something that combined the best of both species' technologies. Hana worked alongside the scientists and engineers, her knowledge of Valtherus energy systems proving essential. When Taewon checked on her progress, he found her covered in crystalline dust, arguing with a human engineer about power flow calculations. You need rest, he said. I will rest when our people are safe. She looked at him, really looked at him. You have lost weight. When did you last eat? When did you? They both laughed tiredly and shared a meal in the laboratory, sitting among the weapon prototypes. It was a strange moment of peace in the chaos. If we survive this, Hana said quietly, I want to marry you properly. Not as a political bargain, but as two people who choose each other. You still want to marry me? Even after everything? Especially after everything. You came when no one else would. You gave us hope. You gave me purpose beyond just being a princess. She took his hand. I love you, Taewon. Not because my mother arranged it, but because of who you are. Taewon felt emotions he had kept buried rising to the surface. I love you too. You are the bravest person I have ever known. They kissed, surrounded by weapons of war, finding a moment of humanity in the darkness. The Void Swarm arrived first. Their massive fleet emerged from hyperspace like a black wave spreading across the stars. Behind them came the secondary forces, even larger than before. The sight would have broken most civilizations. But Taewon had learned something about the Valtheris people during his time among them. When truly threatened, when backed into a corner with no escape, they did not break. They fought with crystalline fury. All ships, this is Commander Taewon. Today we face impossible odds. Some of you will die, but you will die defending everything worth protecting. Your families, your worlds, your future. The swarm thinks we will cower and hide. Instead, we attack. For Valtheris, for humanity, for every species that refuses to surrender to extinction. The combined fleet of human and Valtheris ships moved forward as one. Taewon had split them into 3 battle groups. He commanded the main assault force. Hana commanded the Valtheris home fleet. Daeho led the reconnaissance and harassment group. The swarm formation was massive, but Daeho's scouts had identified the command nodes. Taewon's first wave used the new hybrid weapons. Energy barriers held human missiles protected until they were deep in the swarm formation, then released them at point-blank range into the command nodes. The effect was immediate. Entire sections of the swarm lost coordination, thrashing wildly instead of working together. But there were so many of them. For every command node destroyed, more swarm creatures swarmed in. Princess Hana, how are your forces holding? Taewon asked through the communications. We are holding but taking heavy losses. The Torvins just entered the system. Everyone held their breath. Would the Torvin fleet attack Valtheris, or would Queen Aren's desperate diplomacy work? The Torvin commander's face appeared on all screens. He was a reptilian species with cold eyes. This is Warlord Sungho of the Torvin hegemony. We have reviewed the data you provided, Queen Aren. The Void Swarm is indeed a threat to all species. We will assist in its destruction. But make no mistake, this changes nothing between our peoples. When this is over, we will discuss Valtheris' future. I will take what help I can get, Taewon muttered. All forces coordinate with the Torvin fleet. Target the swarm's main cluster. The battle became a 3-way coordination. Humans used kinetic weapons and missiles. Valtheris used energy weapons and barriers. Torvins used plasma cannons and heavy armor. Together they tore into the swarm formation. But the swarm adapted. It always adapted. New forms appeared, harder to kill, more aggressive. The battle turned into a brutal grind. Ships died on all sides. Taewon watched good people sacrifice themselves to protect others. Daeho's voice came through, tight with pain. Commander, I found it. The Central Intelligence. The thing controlling the entire swarm. Where? Deep in the core formation. And it is massive, bigger than a space station. Can we reach it? Not with a fleet, but maybe with a small strike force, maybe. Taewon made the decision instantly. I am coming to you. Prepare an attack run. Commander, that is suicide, Admiral Minho protested. Then it is suicide. Taewon looked at his bridge crew. Lieutenant Yuna, you have command of the fleet. Continue the assault. If I do not return, make sure they remember what we fought for. Hana's voice cut through the channel. If you are going on a suicide mission, you are not going alone. Princess, you are needed with the fleet. And you are needed alive. I am coming with you, and that is final. There was no time to argue. Taewon took a small strike craft and rendezvoused with Hana and Daeho. They dove into the swarm formation, dodging bioweapons and exploding through organic barriers. The Central Intelligence was a horror beyond description. It pulsed with malevolent awareness, tendrils extending in all directions, coordinating billions of swarm creatures. Getting close enough to damage it seemed impossible. The hybrid weapons, Hana said suddenly. If I channel all my energy into a barrier and we overload every explosive we have inside that barrier, the directed force might be enough. That much energy would kill you, Taewon said. Then it kills me. Our people survive. No, there has to be another way. There is not. You know there is not. Hana looked at him with love and sadness. You taught me that sometimes sacrifice is necessary. Let me be brave one last time. Daeho's voice was quiet. Commander, she is right. It is the only way. Taewon felt his world crumbling. He had found love in the middle of war, and now war was taking it away. I cannot lose you. You will never lose me. I will be in every star you see, every battle you win, every life you save. Hana touched his face gently. Now let me save my people. They approached the Central Intelligence together. Hana's craft moved ahead while Taewon and Daeho loaded every explosive they had into her ship. Her entire body glowed with channeled energy, creating the largest barrier she had ever made. At the last moment, as she flew toward the Central Intelligence, Hana spoke one last time. I love you, Taewon. Build a better galaxy for me. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield. Hana's channeled energy contained and directed the force straight into the swarm's Central Intelligence.